I don't know that students here really remember the chapel as it was. It used to be a dark, very kind of gloomy and moody place, and so when the chapel was remodeled, one of the donors was willing to commission or help pay for the commissioning of unique works of art.
From the 50 or 60, I think, initial candidates, from the numerous initial candidates, they whittled it down to about 10, and then we, the committee, looked through a detailed list of portfolios. We had a person from the East Coast, we had a person from Utah, we had a painter on the south side of Spain. So it was kind of odd that after all this sort of worldwide search, there's one person to emerge, and is a St. Louis and Missouri native, and has a studio we can visit, and is well educated, and is a devout Catholic, and just like all these things in once just became like a real alignment of the stars.
The artist who is working on these, Gwyneth Thompson Briggs, is pretty incredible.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, I say it's alright.
I think that art is the radiant quality of truth. I think Thomas Aquinas would agree with me, and so I'm gonna stick with the sort of the most broad description there. A sculptor friend of mine had heard about this call for entries, and after a very long selection process, I can't believe it, but they went with me, and now I just have the delight to be able to work on a project that's just like a 5-minute drive from my house. In designing these paintings, I've tried to use the best quality materials that will last through the generations, and I've also tried to select a style of painting that I think is
kind of a mix between real but impressionistic enough to let you know it's a painting, and it's an invented world to kind of go into.
I think it's important to maintain a consistent visual language so that when we look at contemporary painting, we can see visual links to how they might have been depicted in the past. There's not a lot of traditional original sacred art that's being commissioned today. So in order to figure out how to manage this whole project, I ended up looking at artists from the past to see, for example, Puvis de Chavannes, who is one of the leading French muralists in the latter part of the 19th century. And so I looked at images of his studio, of his preparatory studies, and sort of pieced together what was his process, and have tried to echo it in certain ways. But yeah, I think the way to really create a cohesive, powerful, finished work of art is to figure out the main idea first, then make sure that all of the contributing portions of it always lead to that central idea.
It's a little bit funny.
So of the saints that are in the chapel, I think it actually is quite a mix.
I think we tried to just find the saints that as many of us as possible could resonate with.
St. Paul is going to be on the back wall, St. Ignatius is on the back wall, St. Francis, St. Benedict are there. So certainly those are some very common names. However, we were also aware that we wanted to have some diversity. We wanted to make sure that we had females that were reflected. And so we hope that in looking at some of these figures on the walls, the students can also see a little bit of themselves reflected and come to use that as a way of thinking about their faith and their relationship to God.
And so if this can contribute to the prayer life of the young men at the chapel, that's my hope.
My gift is my song, yeah, and this one's for you.
You know, I think that the chapel renovation is just stunning. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Pews have been added. It used to have chairs. It was made to be a much lighter space. The skylights were reinstalled.
but I do think maybe a little bit of color or added content will continue to bring it to life. And
we now are working to have these works of art finished that'll be installed maybe even as soon as this summer.
While you're in the world.
The town of Nogales was officially established by Jacob Isaacson in 1880, although it was built up by the native population generations earlier. In 1994, a border wall was constructed under the Clinton administration, cutting the town into two. The wall has been altered and changed since then, and so has the town. The town was separated into twins, the American side being a place for business and employment, and the Mexican side being largely a residential area. When most think of spring break in Mexico, they imagine high schoolers on the beaches of Cancun. But this spring break, a group of SLUH students went somewhere else, Nogales, Mexico. And it was this very place that 10 junior bills became dedicated to learning about the injustices that these refugees face, serving them like men for and with others.
The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can remember.
I remember the first days to see this big fence with barbed wire, kind of like an aggressive way to welcome, so to speak, people.
For people who wanted to enter the United States, there was a huge line that lasted hours.
It was really sad, especially I remember vividly seeing the difference in the physical border.
I think that Mexico was a lot more friendly. It was a lot more welcoming. It had a lot more community, I'd say, rather than the U.S. side, which seemed to have a lot more security, a lot more enforcement, a lot more barbed wire on the wall, and it seemed disheartening at times.
So to me, when I think about Nogales, when I think about our experience, I think about these beautiful landscapes, these beautiful places, this beautiful city, but torn apart, right? Cut in half by this wall.
On both sides of the wall exists an organization known as the Kino Border Initiative. The binational Jesuit institution serves refugees either coming to the U.S. or deported from the U.S. for a variety of reasons. The process of immigration is long and taxing. Obtaining citizenship can often take decades. Up until 2025, these people would apply for an asylum case via the CBP-1 app. However, since then, all asylum seekers from Central and South America have been restricted to only 1,000. A number so small that the process has effectively been shut down. Many of the people who were in the middle of said process have been left stranded. So because of such systems that have been put in place, many immigrants, refugees, and those recently deported find themselves at the Kino Border Initiative, a small safe haven on their journeys. Many have nowhere else to go.
We had the opportunity to interact and talk with many people, and in particular, I had an encounter with a family, which was actually like a mom with two of their kids. Their kids were around 4 or 5 years old, and they got stuck, right? They got stuck in Nogales. And to me, that encounter was very interesting because I have a 3-year-old, and I was able to think how you do parenting, you know, in the middle of this situation, when you're running away from difficult situations, when you still have to provide food, you still have to provide shelter for your kids, you have to provide education, you have to play. There's so much resilience, you know, that they are still fighting for their lives, fighting for their families.
That the amount of uncertainty that immigrants go through and migrants go through in their lives really surprised me through my conversations with people at the Comedor. For example, I met a few people who were recently deported, for example. Their lives changed last week at the time, and they were just adjusting like that. And it was really surprising to see that all their lives had, like, what they knew was gone.
I'm an immigrant. I just became a citizen a year ago, and to be honest, I felt a little bit of guilt because my path to migration was the easiest of all. It became some sort of responsibility, some sort of moral obligation, you know, to think about ways to advocate for them, to put their stories out there, to also to represent, you know, like what an immigrant can do right in this society, what we can bring. Our society gets enriched by people who have different experiences in different places.
I think that we should be more humane with migrants at the border. We should be more humane with immigration in general. We should be more humane with other human beings, because the treatment we've been giving them, the treatment we've been displaying of deporting them just like that and having their lives changed, as I said, the week prior, that's crazy to me.
Now, whenever I think about my contribution, it's not just that I want to do it, it's I have to do it. Because I'm an immigrant, because I'm so lucky, because there are people who have suffered, you know, and have not had their chance.
I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
The desert, with brown sugar skin and bright green spiked arms. For whom? Time is a grain, and change is the wind. Wow. Where's Lightning McQueen?